afternoon, evening, whatever it is. Hope you're doing really well. I wonder if you, like me, have been watching these government briefings and getting that sense that they're really trying to give an impression of control and order in what is a very complicated and messy situation. One game that we have is to count how many times they use the word unprecedented during those briefings, and it's a lot. But that also got me to thinking, yes, it is an unprecedented situation, unlike any that we've ever known in our lifetime. But it's not the first time there's been a complicated, messy situation in the human story. In fact, the human story is full of them, both on a grand scale, but also individually and personally. And it's in those complicated, messy situations that we're tempted to say, where are you, God? If there is a God, where is he? Why doesn't he just show up and take control? And then we wouldn't need these government briefings. Well, I believe that God is in control, and I believe he has stepped right into the story in which there is so many messy, complicated situations, his story. And I think the proof of that is in the person of Jesus Christ, fully God and fully human. Jesus, the man, the human being from Nazareth. Jesus, the God, the Christ, the Saviour who came for us. And he was asked exactly the same question. Why didn't you show up? Where were you? And he was asked it not by sceptical onlookers or suspicious authorities. He was asked it by these two sisters who were very close to him. In fact, Mary and Martha and their brother Lazarus were almost like family to Jesus. And they had informed him and sent a message to Jesus that their brother Lazarus was incredibly sick. And Jesus didn't show up. And by the time he arrived at their house, Lazarus was already dead. And Mary and Martha asked Jesus exactly the same question. In fact, the words are, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Both of them said exactly those words. If you'd been here, if you'd shown up, this wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't be in this situation. And how he responds, I think, is really poignant, especially in our situation today. Because to Martha, and he knew them, and they were very different people, and they were probably at very different stages of grief. But to Martha, he gave a response that was extraordinary. He spoke into her doubt and her despair very clearly with some real teaching. It was like he was giving a ministry of truth to her, speaking into her despair. I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even though he dies. Whoever lives and believes in me will never die. What an extraordinary thing to say to somebody whose brother has just died. But Jesus knew exactly what he was doing. He knew the place that she was coming from, and he responded accordingly. The same with Mary. But Mary asked the same question, was facing the same experience. But Jesus responded very differently. He saw her state and he entered into it, and he burst into tears as well. They wept together. What an incredibly powerful image. Jesus just being there in tears, weeping with this lovely lady Mary, who was grieving and in the depth of sadness. He was with each sister. He was speaking hope and truth and sense into a seemingly hopeless and senseless situation that Martha was questioning. But he was also weeping with Mary. It was a ministry of tears. So we see this fully divine, fully human response, a ministry of truth, trying to bring sense and truth and hope and clarity into situations, and a ministry of tears, a healing presence. Now, what he did next was extraordinary. And if we were going to write it, we would say, well, he would probably have a cheeky little knowing grin, and he would stride up in superhero mode to the grave of Lazarus, and he would say, watch this, everyone, watch this. But no, the Greek word that we're given about what he did next was he bellowed with rage. He was so angry. He was appalled at the situation. He was angry about death, and he was in a rage. And from that sort of gut cry, he ordered his friend Lazarus to rise from the dead, knowing that that would set into motion a series of events that would lead to his own death. So for Jesus, it was the right time to do something as extraordinary as that. How amazing that we have a God who responds to the situation that we're in the same way. He's speaking truth, and he's using his people to speak truth into this situation. And his creation is declaring his truth as well. We see all around us. And we're also called to minister in tears, and also to be ministered to by each other in tears, to share each other's pain and grief at the time. And we're seeing that happening all over the community and through the church, which is great. It's the same message that's being communicated. God within our tears, weeping with us, his people sharing our pain, sharing each other's pain, being the healing presence. But do you know what? It goes beyond the church, beyond the walls of the church. And if there was ever a time when that's been proved, it's now. But don't forget, the National Health Service that we celebrate was born out of Christian values. Nye Bevan, a Christian himself, he said, look, this NHS that he, more than anybody else, founded is a piece of socialism, but it is also a piece of real Christianity. Those were his words 72 years ago. So when we celebrate them on a Thursday, we go out and clap for the NHS. Remember that. That is an expression of God's love for us, his people, for the human race that he made and he loves to bits. And that includes you. Thank you.